Now, this new Rod Wave song, we gotta talk about it, man. Some of you guys might know exactly what song I'm talking about. The other day, Rod Wave dropped a song that had a lot of people concerned about him. He went as far as deactivating his social medias after it dropped, which had a lot of people talking. In this video, we're gonna talk about that, and I also want to give you my perspective on where I think Rod Wave went wrong. Anyway, with that being said, let's talk about it. Now, Rod Wave. It's been a while since I talked about Rod Wave. I've only spoken about him one time in the past though, and that was in the summer of 2020. Rod Wave, as you probably know, is of course a rapper, singer, songwriter out of Florida. If you've been paying attention to the new generation of artists coming up in hip hop, Rod Wave is a guy you're most likely very familiar with. Now, the other day, he dropped a song that shook up the entire internet. The song is titled Nirvana, and if you listen to it, I think we can both agree that it's a pretty serious record. This Nirvana song by Rod Wave is a record about suicide. On a song, Rod Wave is singing and rapping about suicide. He starts off the first verse by saying, "If you're hearing this, it's too late." He then continues and says, "I've been writing since Tuesday, today Friday, that means tomorrow's doomsday. Try to fight the pain, but it ate me alive. Sad to say I lost the battle against my mind. You should be happy for me, homie, no more suffering. We all got a day, I guess we'll see each other then." On this other part, he says, "I hope the heaven's real and one day we can reunite. And don't be crying for me, I lived a wonderful life. I went on tour and seen the world and met all my fans. I can't lie, I wish I could do that shit again. Made plenty of money, roll my will, my kids is good." One of the most concerning parts, however, is probably when Rod Wave says, "Bought all of my niggas brand new cars and watched them flex. Wanted niggas to know that I loved them before I left. I bought a brand new house in Houston, left it to my pops. Take the fam with you, nigga, we all we got." In they face the whole time begging for help. For years, ready to die, but scared of death. Like I said, a pretty serious record. Anyone who knows me knows that when it comes to this mental health stuff, I personally don't play around with that, especially when it's the topic of suicide. And that's why the song had me so worried when I initially heard it. I mean, the first thing that crossed my mind was somebody check on that boy Rod Wave. And that's exactly what the entire internet was thinking as well. A lot of people, but especially Rod Wave fans, showed out for him on social media by sending him a lot of emotional support, and people were just very concerned about him. Now, immediately after the release of this record, Rod Wave actually deactivated his social media accounts. So he drops this Nirvana record where he's rapping and singing about taking his own life, and then suddenly, boom, he goes completely dark on social media. Kinda obvious why so many people were concerned about him. First of all, the song dropped out of nowhere. On top of that, the song is about suicide, and on top of that, Rod Wave deactivates his social media accounts after he drops the record. So the fans were going crazy trying to get some answers. Is Rod Wave good? What's going on? And everything was quiet until Rod Wave decided to post this on his Instagram. "Sorry for the scare, I'm super good, happy as hell, working on my new album, love y'all for show." That was definitely a suicide prevention song. Right before this, or shortly after, not sure exactly when, Nirvana by Rod Wave ended up getting deleted from his official YouTube page, and that's that. So what happened after this though? Well, most people were obviously happy that Rod Wave was good. After all, he did drop a record talking about taking his own life and then went ghost on social media. Now after this though, Rod Wave decided to do an Instagram live. On this IG live, he expressed a couple things. One of those things he talked about and expressed was his frustration at people for thinking this was a suicide letter. And he also responded to people saying that making the song was a clout chasing move.
"I recorded a fucking song, and it was about suicide or whatever. But why the people take that shit and just say that was my suicide letter? Like, that's not how that works. That's not how suicide letters work. You don't go to a studio and record suicide letters, bro. And fuck niggas hating. They're talking about I'm looking for attention. Who the fuck need attention? You forgot who the fuck I was? I don't need no attention. Did you not see my tour? Did you not see my album sales? I don't need no extra attention. I had already deleted my Insta and my Twitter and all that shit because of attention, bro. I don't need no extra attention from nobody, bitch. I'm good."
So as you could hear, Rod Wave was pretty frustrated, and I don't blame him for being frustrated at all. A lot of his frustration, it looks like, came from him just not wanting his loved ones, and most importantly of all, his fans, to be so worried about him when he apparently was doing good. Looking from the outside in though, obviously it makes a lot of sense why people were concerned about him. And also, despite what Rod Wave said, if we listen to this Nirvana record without considering what Rod Wave himself said, the song does sound like a suicide letter. Now, it doesn't mean that that's what it is, but that's what it sounds like. I think where Rod Wave went wrong is assuming that everyone would somehow automatically understand the intention behind the record when he himself never took the time to explain it. Because listening to this record without any context, it'll have anybody worried. And this is the kind of record that you can't really treat like just another song. And when I say that, I'm referring to everything surrounding the actual release. If you're gonna put out a record like this, I think as an artist, you have a responsibility to at least explain the intention behind the song and why it matters so much to you to talk about this, what you're hoping the record is actually gonna do, as in, how it's gonna impact people, etc. And why exactly is that important in a case like this? Let's talk about that. I think it's the responsible thing to do for two reasons. Number one, you don't want people to be worried about you for no reason, because that's pointless. And number two, Rod Wave does have a lot of young fans who follow him and listen to his music. For a lot of those young fans, Rod Wave talking about suicide might be their first introduction to the topic, just so they realize the gravity of what you're talking about in a song. I think it's very important that you have an actual conversation about the song and kind of the intention behind it before you drop it, if you're gonna drop a record like this. So that's really where I think Rod Wave went wrong. I don't think Rod Wave was clout chasing. I don't think he's being disingenuous with this release. I just think he had a bad strategy going into it. And just some advice to all my artists out there: if you're gonna drop a record like this, just make sure you put a lot of thought into the approach of the release, because that's really what this entire thing comes down to. Had Rod Wave fans known that this record was about to drop, there wouldn't be any confusion or any concern here. I think it was brave of him to speak on it in the music. I mean, Rod Wave is a pretty conscious artist anyway. He talks about that real shit in the music, so he's no stranger to covering dark topics. He just has to make sure he has a strategy set in place next time around if he wants to drop a similar record in the future. That's all. But yeah, where Rod Wave went wrong. Any thoughts on this entire conversation? Like we covered the other day, Rod Wave dropped this record titled Nirvana, where he was singing, rapping about suicide. The song had a lot of people concerned for him, and yeah, you know the rest. Any thoughts on it? Definitely let me know in the comment section below, and let's have a discussion about this.